Hey, good
Welcome.
to be here, man. Nice to see you got a nice job here.
It is not too bad, right? Nice room. So people often associate your work with pop music.
Right.
How did you get drawn into the world of ballet?
Just very kind of crazily. I don't like usually go to cocktail parties, but I got
Okay.
invited. There's a woman in New York named Bevy Smith who does these kind of like tastemaker mixer type things. I was like, all right, what the hell? It was in the spring of 2012, so it was some spot down in Tribeca, and I noticed this very attractive woman sitting at the end of the table, and I was like, who is she? So I flashed back that this woman had danced with Prince on I think, Welcome to America tour, maybe, I think in 2011. And so I kind of slid over and started talking to her, and it was Misty Copeland. And, I was really fascinated. I knew of her, I'd seen clips of her, but I didn't really know what she was or what the world was like to be a classical ballerina.
Yeah.
So I kind of grilled her over dinner, and I asked her manager, Gilda Squire, and her, how does a brother get a ticket? So they hooked me up. I paid for a ticket to see her at the Met. Well, I didn't realize that it was not just any night. As I show in the film, she was premiering in the Firebird,
Very
and
important role.
oh yeah, one of the most iconic in the world of classical ballet. I mean, Firebird, Swan Lake. These are the ballets everyone kind of knows, right? And her picture was in front of the Met. She was like the symbol of that season for ABT, American Ballet Theater, one of the world's leading ballet companies. So, wow, I went in. I was really impressed. I'd never been into Met, really. I'd certainly never been to a classical ballet company at that level. The music, Stravinsky's music in this big room was kind of beautiful for a music person.
Mm.
Just to be, wow, it's really amazing. And to see how it integrated with the dance, So,
So you met her at this critical juncture
well,
in her career.
she was at a high point.
Yeah.
But then we went back, and as the film shows, she actually says to me, I'm in a great deal of pain. So she had fought through, she had been in pain for several months, but she was aiming for that date, which was June 12th, 2012. The reason I know that, I actually found the ticket just last week. But after that, that was the last time. After that, she didn't perform anymore that season. And within a month or two, she had surgery. She had 6 fractures in her left shin. Literally, there were breaks.
And
all
she was
along the shin.
performing through that pain.
Oh, yeah, absolutely. I mean, you could barely walk in that, and she's leaping in the air and landing on it.
What insight did you get into what made her able to do that as a person?
I think, I've done projects with a lot of different artists. I've done documentaries on basketball players, etc. She's perhaps the strongest person I've ever met, and one of the most determined. I think the way to look at Misty, and I guess all ballerina dancers, she's an artist athlete.
Mm-hmm.
She's got the aesthetic and the understanding of art history, of her form of an artist. But she's an athlete. I mean, she's a powerhouse, and she's barely as big as this table. But her strength, and her inner core strength, is unbelievable. And her, I don't know.
I'd imagine the mental discipline of an athlete
Yes.
as well.
And pain threshold.
Yeah.
Pain threshold. It's just incredible. To this day, I don't think, she's still in some discomfort.
Where do you think that strength comes from for her? In the film, you show some of her mentors
Right.
that she was introduced to.
Right.
Do you think that's part of the core of her strength?
Yeah, she needed a sense of purpose. And when she got to New York and she was going through a career, every dancer wants to be a principal dancer. But she needed something else, I think. And Susan Fales Hill, who's a former comedy writer, used to work on Different World, now is married to a very successful Wall Street guy. She's like a patron of the arts in New York. She not only adopted Misty, but she introduced her to a whole world of black women, from Deborah Lee at BET to Veronica Webb, the model, who all had been kind of trailblazers. And it really gave her a sense of purpose. And like as she talks about in the clip we used, she wasn't just going for herself. Like, there's all these people coming and expecting me to be there and rooting for me. I have to perform. I think that's driven her very, very powerfully.
That's definitely an inspiration. Did you ever see it as a burden for her? Did she ever wear that as a burden, that pressure?
I mean, I don't think she would articulate it that way. I do think, if you look at some of the response to her getting the principal dancer role throughout the media, there is this kind of sense of she's carrying a lot of people on her back, um, which I think is, you know, the first, whether you're Jackie Robinson or a Barack Obama,
Yeah.
you know, there is a certain thing that happens, the black first. And I think that it's kind of amazing that we're having a black first in America in this
2015.
exactly. But there is still, I mean, that world of classical ballet world, man. You know, I think.
Well, in terms of black first, I
Yeah.
wanted to ask you, what was it like for you as a black man to step into the ballet world in order to create this document?
Well, it's very. I mean, I've worked, as you know, around hip hop, a black film,
R&B.
R&B, a lot of different, you know, worlds of black sort of artistic. And this is not any of those worlds. This is a very, very conservative, tradition-bound, kind of aesthetically narrow world. I mean, ballet is about conformity. You're supposed to be able to watch these women and men, and they fit into this box. And you're not supposed to think about, in a sense, who they are. They are these characters, and which seems okay. We'll go with that. But Misty breaks the form, and it's not necessarily just her race. Actually, if you go actually see her at the Met or any of these, her body type, she's shorter, she's thicker, she's more buxom, she's got more like a gymnast body. So you watch her, and immediately you're like, when she leaps across the stage, you notice that she's not the same. So difference in the world that we come out of hip hop, difference is everything. Making your brand, establishing your voice, right? In that world, it's the antithesis. They want you to be uniform. So the struggle is not simply race, it's also that she challenges the assumptions about what a ballerina should look like.
In terms of body type and muscularity,
Yes.
all those things.
Yes.
At the same time, and this is really amazing, she's not afraid to talk about race in that space.
Oh, I mean, that's been one of the things that's really gotten people. I mean, there's people on the internet, you wouldn't believe the hateration aimed at her from a lot of the classical ballet fans, who her very presence challenges the aesthetic. So there's race and there's aesthetic, and they're intertwined, you know, because they're very much about the tradition of this thing, and it can't change. But I think it's pretty clear that classical ballet, as a form that had any currency in the popular culture, didn't have any. And that Misty's presence has elevated the whole classical ballet world by turning attention back to it, that girls in the mall know who Misty is.
Yeah.
And so some people, you'd be shocked, are uncomfortable with that in that world, that they're not as open to this idea of new Canada, new America, multicultural, than you think they would be, because that means bigger audiences. But there's like this whole thing of holding back.
So there's this criticism, and at the same time, she's actually helping the entire form increase in terms of popularity and reach.
When's the last time, you know, anybody had a conversation about a classical ballerina? I would make the argument, you know, and I think it's pretty well founded, that she's the biggest pop figure. I'm not saying she's the greatest dancer, but the biggest pop figure since Baryshnikov. You know, who really crossed over to movies and TV, and people knew who Baryshnikov was, even in the mall. And it's been 30, 35, 40 years.
Where do you think her confidence comes from to address these things in the world of ballet? I mean, it's not the best career move. Wisest career move?
Yeah, I think, you know, one of the key things, aside from the mentoring of Susan, was meeting Raven Wilkinson. She saw a documentary on the Ballet Russe de Monte Carlo, which was a company that really traveled around the U.S. in the 40s, 50s, I guess into the 60s. A European sort of run company, but they traveled around the South and so forth. And Raven Wilkinson was a black ballerina doing the classical repertory, 1950, whatever, America. And Misty didn't know that she existed until she saw the doc. It turned out that Raven lives like 3 blocks from her. They would literally cross each other's path and not know it. So the idea that she's part of a legacy was very important to her. And she realized that I have an opportunity at this moment to not just be bigger as a dancer, but to begin a dialogue within my world. And she, you know, the thing is, she could have easily gone ahead and done modern dance and forget that
Mm-hmm.
and going forward. But she's committed to integrating that world and that art form. And so she's taking the blow. So she took that on. She took that burden on.
You were talking about how Misty challenges notions around body type and body image in that world. Did you get any insight into why the idea of a small, thin dancer is so persistent, even now in
Well,
ballet?
Balanchine is one of the major figures, in the world of classical ballet. I mean, he's Duke Ellington. He's that bigger figure in terms of his innovations. And so when he made that move and made that idea, it traveled throughout the entire world of ballet. If you look at Deirdre's book about ballerinas, you see pictures of ballerinas up really even into the 1930s, 1940s, who were more like Misty, who had breasts, who were more womanly, I guess you might say. Not to say they were big women, but
Mm-hmm.
they had more curves. It's almost like a line of demarcation. And because Balanchine as a choreographer and a visionary was so influential, it spread throughout the world. So in some ways, you can make the argument that Misty's body is a return to earlier forms of the ballerina.
You've done some writing about sports as well and black athletes. Do you see any parallels with the way people look at Misty Copeland, the way people look at someone like Serena Williams?
Yes, there's absolutely this idea of what the body. I mean, I always say my doc is a autobiography of Misty's body because you see it in various forms from her as a young girl to the Fireberg to her trying to come back to where she is now. And I mean, I remember seeing Serena at the U.S. Open the year she broke out the black cat suit. And people, oh my God. I mean, her body was like, whoa. So I mean, the black body is always an interesting sight because there's the stereotypes about the black body. There's the pride in the black body. There's these different perceptions of what beauty is based on shape. And, if Misty walks in this room, she's kind of a petite, cute girl. But in that world, she looks big. It's kind of a strange optical illusion, actually, of the ballet world. So it's all relative to where you are in the world and who you're competing against.
In terms of the artist athlete body, there's something universal in this story about an artist athlete reaching this critical point in their
Yes.
career
Yeah.
where they're facing an injury, they're facing an obstacle at a time when it could be over
Right.
or they could push through. Is that universality something that drew you to this project?
Absolutely. When we finally sat down with her, I said, listen, this is a unique moment. You don't know what's going to happen. I don't know what's going to happen. But because of what you've already done, you're already a very significant figure in the history of this art form. If you come back, and you'll have proven something. And that, as you point out, that idea of coming back from the depths, because she was here. I mean, literally, she's in front of the Met. To I can barely walk. And then to come from that and to go back there, I thought there was a story there. And it was very open-ended, man. We had no idea what was going to happen.
Especially at that age.
Yeah.
Because that's, she wasn't exactly a young dancer.
Right.
In the prime of her career.
Yes.
But that window, as all athletes know, is not very big.
Yes. No, I mean, it's funny. One of the great advantages of being a principal dancer now is she actually dances less. And she's 33 now, just turned 33. She probably now can dance, I think she's going to go to 38 or 39. She said the last time we spoke a couple of weeks ago, she said, my career's just started. Because now I'm going to do Swan Lake and I'm going to do Firebird. Next season at the Met, she's doing Swan Lake, Firebird, and Romeo and Juliet. And she feels I can now concentrate, I'm not on just being an artist. I can concentrate on just being the best dancer I can be. I expect to be a better dancer in 2 years than I've ever been. So
Wow.
that's the interesting thing. It's the film is really about this moment. She's embarking on another artistic journey that I think will really solidify her legacy as a dancer outside of race and body image.
As you mentioned, she's probably the biggest pop star in the ballet world. Do you think that's enough to save the tradition?
Well, I know it depends. It's funny. You go to the Met and see the crowds there, and you're like, wow, this is a very old crowd. How are they going to replace these people as audience there? It's funny because there's people who how should I put it? I think that Misty's biggest legacy, or most immediate legacy, won't just be a generation of multicultural dancers. It's the audience. I think they need a younger, more diverse audience, I believe, to sustain classical ballet. And I think that she's the catalyst for that. The question is, will the rest of the ballet world take heed, or will they? I don't see how they can't avoid. I can't believe any ballet company's looking like, oh, we don't want any black folks in here, we don't want any Latino folks in here, we don't want mixed people in here. Yeah. We need to somehow figure out a way to reach out to them in some form, because we're seeing there's an audience here that would appreciate the art form.
As someone coming primarily from a pop music background, what was it like to observe this art form where interpretation, as you said, individuality is actually not the highest value?
Yeah, it was very strange. I mean, like I said, I felt like I was walking into, I think Susan Fail says like it's a country club in the 1950s in the film. It did feel like that at times. Their attitude toward visual media overall is very retro. I mean, most dancers never see themselves on film ever. Almost in all the major venues, at least in the U.S. and probably to some degree here, the unions control the backstage. So there's no multi-camera shoots. There has one proscenium shot, and that's it. And they're not often shown to the dancers, except for maybe some instructional. I read 3 ballerinas, Canadian ballerinas, last night at the screening who were in their probably 50s, 60s, and they were saying they've never seen themselves a full dance during their career because it wasn't allowed. So there's no records of a lot of people.
So these are some of the things that you think need to change in order to
absolutely. There's a relation
move forward
to be part of the dialogue. Like most of the footage in the film that's backstage, or even a lot of performance stuff, we shot in Australia, we shot in Italy, we shot in Brooklyn, another foreign country, in order to get access. Trying to shoot at the Met, oh, forget it, dude, can't happen. Too expensive. Things about Instagram. There's issues in the ballet world about how much can a ballerina post about herself and her work. These seem like, oh, you got to be kidding me, right? But these are real issues in that world, and it speaks to the mentality. They're still here, and the world has moved here. Misty's dragging them toward modernity slowly.
Fascinating stuff and a fascinating documentary. Congratulations.
Thanks, man.